Welcome to the Week 2 Go-To session. This is the second session of 4 we're having this month. Thanks to those who are in attendance. Um, as you can see on the screen here, we're going to dive right into Week 2. Let me bring up, as I do other weeks, where we are in the game. Okay, so here, let me close this. Let me get to the general list of class activities. So let me go in here. Again, this may not be exactly how you guys see it on your end, but this is more or less what you see. Okay, so we've already completed week 1. By the way, I hope everyone had a fantastic Labor Day. I treated myself to doing absolutely nothing. I watched a lot of television. College football started. I love college football, so I spent all Saturday watching that. But yeah, I did absolutely nothing productive, and it was fantastic. Brendan says same. Same about what? About doing absolutely nothing or about watching college football? Brendan has typed something in the chat. Yeah, no, it's. I look so forward to the 3-day break, and then it's over before you know it. Okay, yeah, me too. Lots of television, band practice. Oh, okay, cool. Nicholas, what do you play? Oh, okay, David's getting on my good side. College football guy. Yeah, I pay no attention to the NFL, and I grew up. It was the opposite. I know people who watch this lecture, the recording of it, are going to be screaming at their video right now. They can skip ahead though. Why is the instructor getting? Why is he talking about college football? I apologize. Guitar. Okay, nice. I play piano. I have a guitar, and yes, I can strum basic chords, but no, I don't really have much facility with the instrument at all. Yeah, when I was a kid, because I grew up in Chicago, so it's very much a pro sports town. Cubs, Sox, and baseball. Chicago Bears, football. Blackhawks, NHL. I didn't really understand the appeal of college football, but then that all got reversed, probably in my mid to late 20s. And now it's the complete opposite. I have no idea what happens in the NFL, but I pay attention to college football. Yeah, passionately. Okay, back onto course here. So we've completed week 1. I've already graded the journal responses. Yeah, some people did okay, and some people I went pretty easy with the grading because I do understand that students are learning and figuring out what I expect from assignments. But make sure that you apply that feedback if I did have any concerns to point out, because again, this should be like automatic high grades for people, hundreds or close to it. Because quite literally, I think I said this in the week 1 lecture, that I treat these as informal quizzes. So if you summarize the assigned readings, and I think I said this in the first lecture too, I can't quite remember because it was from last month. But I said, yeah, I mean, listen, if you skim a bit, I'm okay with that. But yeah, if you can give me a good sense that you've done the readings and you've watched the lecture, I do think the lectures are more important because quite literally, these assignments, like the brainstorming worksheet that was due, well, actually, it's due tonight. I moved the due date. Typically, things are due on Sundays. But yeah, the major writing assignments cannot be figured out on one's own. They can't be guessed at. So watching lectures is pretty critical. And the weekly journal response, where I recommend writing 2 paragraphs. One that summarizes the lecture, one that summarizes the reading. As long as I come away with, yeah, this person did the reading, and this person watched the lecture, yeah, I'm good to go. I'm more than happy to record a high grade and then move on. So yeah, don't make this activity difficult. Okay, this should be in your back pocket. Obviously, the brainstorming worksheets, the 1.5 assignment, are still coming in because it was Labor Day weekend and because I found out that quite literally I could not have things due on Sunday because technically Full Sail is closed. I mean, it's closed on Sunday anyways, but like in terms of expecting student work over the holiday, you can't do that. So the option was to either move it to Saturday, which is odd because it's still a weekend day, but I guess it was okay to have things due on Saturday, or till Tuesday, right after the week. I just felt like Saturday would be too rushed. I would get lousy submissions. So yeah, today's Tuesday, so at midnight tonight, this first assignment is due. I will try my best to get those banged out. Because if you remember, remember from the week 1 lecture, we talked about ad analysis. we talked about how to spot important or interesting things going on in an ad. I stress the importance of threes, right? You need to be able to spot three things in your chosen ad. And then thesis statements, okay? That the thesis statement is a single sentence that sets up the rest of your paper. And that's where you list those three discussion points, those three talking points, those three analysis points. So most of my attention, yes, I'm going to look at the worksheet as a whole, of course, but arguably prompt 9 in that worksheet, the one that asks you to take a stab at writing thesis statements, that's arguably the most important prompt in the entire worksheet, because quite literally, if you don't have a working thesis, everything else gets knocked off its course. Okay. And yeah, you need feedback on that before the next assignment. But here we are, week 2. And it's the same stuff, another weekly journal response where you summarize the reading and the lecture, another Achieve module. And then we're mostly going to talk about this assignment here, the 2.5 assignment, which is an outline. Okay. And yeah, you need feedback on your worksheet, specifically, or most importantly, the thesis statement, because without a working thesis statement, you can't really complete the outline assignment correctly. Now, here's the good news. Most people, when they hear the word outline, their head hits the desk, their eyes roll, they get a strange pain in their chest cavity, right? Because people in general know what outlines are, but how do I go about doing that? The good news is you don't have to create an outline from scratch. We've provided the outline template for you. Okay, you just have to complete it. And actually, even though I do have a presentation and lecture slides to go over, I'm going to put that aside for a moment, and I'm going to dive right into the assignments, okay? So literally, this will be like a walkthrough of what you need to do. And I tried this out last month, so I'm going to do it again, which is, again, you don't have to create an outline from scratch. We have a template for you. But first of all, let me explain in general, like what an outline is, okay? And bear with me if you're already thinking, I know what an outline is. Hang in there, okay? So let's imagine you're writing a generic paper on what I did over the summer. That is not the essay you're writing for this class, but I'm just using a very, very basic example. So what we're aiming for in this class is a short, meaning, 2.5 to 3 page, 3.5 page, 5-paragraph essay. And if you think back to the week 1 lecture, where I stress the importance of being able to identify 3 important things in your chosen ad from the approved list, okay? Yeah, here's how it works. Okay, so a basic outline, and I do want you to keep this in mind when I show you the template. And the template is more detailed than what I'm showing here, but I think it's helpful to understand the basic premise. So the 5 paragraphs we're aiming for is, first, an introduction paragraph. Okay, this is a general paragraph. So maybe in this paragraph, you start out by talking generally about the bliss of summertime, or being free from school. Okay, obviously Full Sail's all year round, so that's not really true for you guys, but for a lot of people it is. And it ends with your thesis. And if you remember from week 1, I'm kind of stressing the classic 3-point thesis. So again, you're not writing a paper for this class on what you did over the summer, but a basic thesis would sound something like, this past summer, actually, let me put this in italics, this past summer, so it can stand out better. And I'm going to list 3 things here, okay? I traveled to California. I participated in band camp, getting that idea from Nicholas. And I worked as a lifeguard. Okay, really cliched ideas related to summer. This is the thesis, and it sets up what's to follow. It sets up the structure for the entire paper, because the next paragraph, the second paragraph, is your first thesis point. Okay, so that would be the trip to Cali. Then your second paragraph would be devoted to your second thesis point. Band camp. And then your third thesis point would be your third paragraph. Lifeguard. And then finally a conclusion where you kind of wrap things up, okay? Again, I know this is a dumbed down example, and I know some of you are thinking, I know what an outline is. Some of you might even be thinking, yes, I know the 5-paragraph form, or I know the classic 3-point thesis, but not everybody does. And I do think it's important to get these basics down because you're doing the exact same thing with your ad analysis essay. Okay, so if you chose, for example, the Call of Duty ad. Let's say you chose the Call of Duty ad, and the 3 things that stood out to you was the ad's choice of music. Okay, it uses a song from the Rolling Stones called "Gimme Shelter." I don't want to give people ideas who have chosen that ad, so I'll try to be as general as I can, but that choice of song is not accidental. Yes, it's upbeat and it's a classic rock song and lots of people know it, and sure, that's part of it, but there's something else going on. Like the song fits the ad and the game. Okay, so those of you writing about the Call of Duty ad, there's a little hint there. But okay, let's say your 3 points for the Call of Duty ad are, the ad's choice of music, the ad's purposely diverse cast, and actually I'll leave the third thing blank because again, I don't want to tell the Call of Duty people you must write about these 3 things. There are half a dozen or things, interesting things going on in that ad. But same thing here. Okay, so we're aiming for a 5-paragraph essay. That is an introduction, and then your 3 body paragraphs, 3 middle paragraphs, where you discuss those 3 thesis points one at a time, and then a conclusion. I'm going to go ahead and close these because I don't want to have too many things open. But keep that in mind, okay? The basic 5-paragraph structure and the importance of having a thesis that lists your 3 discussion points. Because, let me real quickly show. So here's the completed Jeep essay. So in week 1, we looked at the Jeep ad. Remember the reversible image? But I wrote this essay, even though it jokingly says Jane, a student. And I can't remember if I talked about this in the week 1 lecture or not, but I purposely created an outline and this essay because A, I wanted to see what it was like to complete the assignments that I assign. I think that's always useful. And B, it helped me realize just how time consuming and difficult these papers are. I thought I would bang out this essay because I knew exactly what I wanted to say about the ad. And 12 hours later, I was still working on it. But if you can see here, and I'll go through this really quickly because something tells me I might have visited this already in week 1, but here's an introduction, okay? So it makes an opening move. I riff on the idea of Jeep, the image it brings to people's mind. I briefly describe the ad, okay? Starting where? Here, okay? That it's a print poster containing a reversible image, set against a beige background, that there's a reversible animal in it, blah, blah, blah. I briefly described the ad because, your audience for this essay is the general reader, okay? It's like that stranger off the street, someone who may not be familiar with the ad, or maybe they've seen the ad, but they don't know it as well as you do, or don't remember it as well as you do. So, I kind of make an opening move. I briefly describe the ad, and then I end with my thesis, which is here, okay? Through the use of simple color, 1, playful imagery, 2, that animal imagery, and 3, a double meaning tagline that reinforces theme, the see whatever you want to see ad, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so I have my 3 talking points. So here's a paragraph entirely about the ad's use of color. Here's a paragraph entirely about the ad's use of imagery, why that animal imagery is interesting and important. Here's a third paragraph about the ad's tagline. Often taglines aren't actually that meaningful or interesting in ads, but here I'm not just explaining the tagline. I'm making I hope, somewhat subtle point. And then here's my conclusion. Okay, so again, keep this in mind. Okay, I apologize, David. That's one of the risks of canceling last week's lecture, is that I might accidentally revisit things. But I'll move on, okay? Because now I want to get into the outline. So keeping these general things in mind, okay, what an outline is, and what we're aiming for, a 5-paragraph essay. So here's the outline template. And it comes with a bunch of instructions that you can read on your own. but I'm going to skip down to the actual template itself. Now, here's an important thing to keep in mind. Every Roman numeral here, so here's a 1, here's a 2, okay? There are 5 of them. They represent separate paragraphs in the essay. Just like that, what I did over my summer vacation, 5 paragraphs, you're doing the same thing here. But it's broken down for you, okay? It has more details. So, for example, Roman numeral 1 asks you to set up your introduction paragraph. So, first it asks for a 1-sentence hook, enticing your audience to read more. So, yeah, just a 1-sentence preview of how you think your essay will begin. You'll probably go beyond 1 sentence. So, for example, if I bring up the Jeep essay, you could say that my opening hook is Jeep, the well-known brand, practically markets itself with its reputation for ruggedness, independence, and adventure. But I don't just leave it there. I actually develop that idea. But for this, yeah, just 1 sentence. 1-sentence preview of how you think your essay might begin. Then a concise description of the ad. Just a couple sentences. 2, 3, 4 is okay, but concise. Okay, so this is completely different from the brainstorming worksheet that you just handed in, or you're about to hand in tonight, because there's a prompt on that worksheet that asks for a detailed description. I think it even says as if you're describing the ad to someone who's never seen it before. This is not that. Okay, this is a concise description, because we're building the introduction paragraph, which will have an opening hook, a brief kind of summary or overview of the ad, just to give that general reader, that perfect stranger, the gist. Okay, the gist is what I'm looking for. And finally, your thesis statement. And if we look at the completed outline example, by the way, you have this example. Okay, when you go to the outline activity, you have this as a downloadable file. You can see that that's what I've done here. Here's my 1-sentence preview of how I think the essay is going to begin. Here's my concise description. Mine's probably a little bit longer than most, but again, it's overall short. I think it's 4 sentences instead of 2 or 3. The point here is you don't want to overdo it. No reader wants to read through a wall of text where you take the person through every second of the ad. No, just the gist. And finally, my thesis, the same one I just pointed out, where I list my 3 discussion points. Okay. So if we go back to the blank the blank outline for your ad analysis essay. Oh, and let me mention one huge caution, because I see this every month. It might be only a handful of students, but still, I see it. Week 1, you had a worksheet to complete, a brainstorming worksheet. That kind of looks like, yeah, a bunch of prompts you have to answer, which is essentially what it is. This assignment is not that. I say this because there are some students every month who maybe they've watched the lecture, but sometimes not. And they open up this template and they think it's like the week 1 brainstorming worksheet. Oh, there's information here that I have to complete. And so they fill out these things randomly. Okay, as if they're isolated prompts. No, they're not. Again, it's that 5-paragraph format. 5 paragraphs, you're just filling in with greater detail what those 5 paragraphs are going to include. So, okay, yeah, I wanted to go back to the blank outline. So the introduction paragraph is set up. Then you move to Roman numeral 2, which is your second body paragraph. And it even says here, body paragraph's topic sentence, identifying the first specific rhetorical strategy in your thesis. That's just fancy speak for what is your first thesis point. Okay, create a topic sentence. A topic sentence is almost like the thesis for that individual paragraph. The topic sentence lets readers know what this paragraph is going to be about. So if we look at the completed outline, here's my topic sentence. The ad is an exercise in simplicity, especially in its use of color. Okay, so that's a topic sentence. People know that, okay, this section is going to be about color. Oh, and by the way, don't borrow language from the example. Every month I see the ad is an exercise in, and they replace the word simplicity with something else, especially in its use of music. Or they, as their 1-sentence preview of how the essay might begin, they write, Call of Duty, the well-known game, practically sells itself with its reputation for, and then they insert different adjectives. And don't do that, okay? Technically, it's plagiarism. Come up with your own way of wording things. So Roman numeral 2 is your second body paragraph. And this whole section is about that topic, right? Because think back to that really bare bones outline I showed. Introduction, thesis point number 1, thesis point number 2, thesis point number 3, conclusion. Here we're still under thesis point number 1. So it asks for a topic sentence. Then it asks for one detail that is part of the rhetorical strategy. That is fancy speak for give me one main point you plan to make in that paragraph. Then it asks for a second main point you plan to make in that paragraph. Then it asks for research, okay, a quotation, including an APA citation. I'm going to return to the issue of APA later in the lecture. For now, yes, this does require you to begin finding research. Here's the idea. If you complete this entire outline with care, and again, you have this example to study, you have this lecture, and you have this example outline provided for you. The thinking is that if you do a good job with the outline, you fill it out properly, then you are in awesome shape to take the next step, which in week 3 is to write a draft of the paper. Because an outline is a blueprint, right? It's not the entire paper, it's your main ideas. Yes, you need to flesh out those ideas, but you have all the main pieces in place. It's kind of like having a skeleton, but you have to hang flesh on that skeleton. Right? This week we're focusing on the skeleton. Week 3, when you write your first draft, that's when you'll flesh things out. Okay, so yeah, you deliver a topic sentence for your first thesis point. Make one main point you plan to make, a second main point, research. Then there's this guy here, a sentence or two explaining how the research supports your claim. This is for you and for me, just so you can understand why the quotation is relevant. Come essay time, you're not going to literally include this information in the outline. I think that's one confusing aspect about this outline. Why have students respond to something that's not going to appear in their paper? But yeah, this is more for you and me. So here I explain why my quotations on color are relevant. And then you just repeat, okay? So body paragraph 3, this is your second thesis point. In this case, it's imagery. So here's my topic sentence, clearly establishing that imagery is the topic here. One main point I plan to make about the ad's use of imagery. A second main point I plan to make. A relevant quotation. I found this nifty quotation here, specifically about the imagery in the ad. An explanation of why the research is relevant. And then repeat. Body paragraph number 4. This will be your third thesis point. Topic sentence. Here it's the ad's tagline. One main point I plan to make, a second main point, relevant quotation, explanation of why that quotation is relevant, and then finally the conclusion paragraph, where it asks you to rephrase your thesis statement using different language. So I show an example of that here. And then a couple sentences where you anticipate how the essay will close down. Okay. And by the way, I understand that maybe things change. Maybe when you're actually writing the essay in week 3, you find a different way to close things down. Maybe you come up with a different way to kick things off. But I want you to at least be working on getting this blueprint set up, okay? Because really, the stronger you have this blueprint, the easier it's going to make week 3. And the reason why we ask for research, a quotation in each of the 3 body paragraph sections, is because then you've got everything. 3 pieces of research are required. The ad does get listed as a source, but in addition to the ad itself, you need 3 sources. One has been provided for you if you would like to use it. So if I go into the outline activity, and I think it's included in just about every major activity, but you have a link to this video, okay? Pathos, ethos, and logos in advertising. You're free to use this video. That can be one of your 3 sources. It's a little bit confusing here because it says 2 sources have been provided for you, this video and the ad. And then you need 2 more. I think it's simpler just to explain that, in addition to the ad, you need 3 sources. Please, though, yes, absolutely. You can use this video in a way that makes it easier, right? Because this one's been provided for you. You just need to find 2 more sources. But please, 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 if you do use this video, which is perfectly fine, do something more interesting with it than telling me that pathos is the appeal to emotion. That's a basic definition of a word. probably you could have come up with that definition on your own. Even if you didn't know what the word pathos meant, looking up a dictionary definition of a word is not research. Okay, so do something more interesting with the video than just generically define one of these terms, because I see it every month. I shouldn't laugh, but yeah, it drives me nuts. There's more interesting stuff in the video that you can quote. I should point out too that in my completed essay, where is it? Here. I have 6 sources, and I didn't use that pathos, logos, and ethos video. I could have, but I already had 6 sources. So, yeah, maybe I go a little bit overboard because I wanted to write the best essay possible, and I really did feel like all these sources were required. But you only need 3. Um, any questions so far at this point? Are people understanding the gist of what I'm asking from the outline assignment? And again, I apologize if some of this sounds familiar or you're insulted because I know what an outline is, but believe me, there are a lot of people who are going to benefit from this. And I really do need to make sure, because there is that confusion where people treat the week 2 outline template as if it's just another brainstorming worksheet. And then I see that it's just randomly filled with information instead of what it's supposed to be, which is a careful planning of these 5 paragraphs. So you don't have to respond in the chat, but are we good to go? Can I move forward? I'm going to move forward. Oh, one more thing I should say about the outline template itself. Yeah, outlines are not full paragraphs. Okay, so when you're making a main point, you just need a sentence or 2. That's it, because that's what an outline is. It's getting the main ideas on the page. So yeah, this isn't the essay draft, so you shouldn't be filling it in with paragraphs of information. I know some people are ambitious. I know some people already want to start getting their full ideas down on the page. I also understand that not everybody I don't outline. I know that sounds terrible because I'm the instructor, but I don't know. I've been writing for so long. I mean, I do outline, but I do it in my head. Like I'll be doing the dishes or going for a walk, and I'll be planning the paper in my head. And yes, I'm logically planning it. Like, here's what I think I'll do in the introduction as an opening move. Here are the points I know I want to cover. But yeah, I don't think I've ever, except when it was required for a class, actually created an outline. But lots of students do benefit from this. And for those who, like me, aren't crazy about outlining, I'll still ask you to go through it. Look at it this way. If you're an expert on outlining already, this should be an easy task, okay? Because it's not a full in-depth writing assignment. Okay, so let me switch gears to the lecture, and we're going to get to research, because I do want to spend some time talking about research and talking about APA format, and specifically a deal that I'm going to offer people on APA for this assignment. Week 1. Wait a second. Did I open the wrong? Hold on. Week 2. I might need these documents later, so I don't want to close them. Week 1. There's week 2. I could have sworn that's the one I opened. Okay, so here we are, week 2. I'm going to fly through some of these slides because we looked at this in week 1, right? Where I explained this is the writing process. Every week of this class is devoted to a separate stage in the writing process. So we're here right now, organizing. Also, research. We also covered this. Okay, I mentioned that your audience is the general reader, almost like that perfect stranger you could pull in off the street. Oh, even though this might be annoying, let me get. I know I go back and forth too much. Some students complain about that, but okay, let me show one more thing. Let me explain why audience is so important. So come essay time in week 3, although I see it on the outline too. Sometimes I see an opening sentence to the essay, and the outline does ask for a 1-sentence preview of how you think you might kick the essay off. And I'll see a sentence like this. In this, here, let me blow that up a little bit. That's really tiny. In this ad, the man is really nervous at his new job. And then I have to be the mean instructor. I don't like to be the mean instructor, and I never mean things harshly, but I have to say things like, in what ad? What man? Right? By the way, anybody want to take a guess as to what ad is being talked about here? Maybe you look through all the ads when you're making a choice about which ad to write about. Anybody want to show off that they carefully looked at all the ads? Like, I know what ad this person is talking about, but the general reader wouldn't. That's the takeaway, okay? That your writing has to be accessible to that perfect stranger off the street. This person is talking about the McDonald's ad. So this is not an effective opening line. And by the way, I understand this impulse. We do it all the time, where we assume that because ideas are clear to us, they must be automatically clear to other people. But that's not true. And in good writing, we hold the reader's hand. Not completely, but we do. And a good way to test this is to read your own writing from the perspective of someone who's not you. Okay? So look over your work as if it was accidentally left behind somewhere on a cafeteria table or a public library table, and read over your own words as if you are not you, as if you are a complete stranger, and you'll catch things like this. This is, incredibly vague, but this is more specific. In the McDonald's ad, first day, can't type, Andy, an anxious millennial, is on his first day of work. I don't like the repetition of first day here and first day there, but okay, I could fix that later. Can you guys see the difference between these two sentences? Can you understand how this would make absolutely no sense to the general reader? But this one does, because it holds the reader's hands. The McDonald's ad. Here's the title of that ad. Here's the name of the person. Here's who he is, an anxious millennial. An explanation that he's on his first day of work. And it's not terribly longer, right? It's just, I don't know, this much longer. That's it. But one is very clear and one is very general and vague. Okay, so be careful about that, because I do see this a lot. Now, why did I mention that? Oh, yeah, because we were talking about intended audience. Your intended audience is that general reader. So make sure that your ideas make sense to the average person off the street. What is an essay? Actually, an essay can be anything. A video can be an essay. I was going to explain the root of the word essay, but that would dull you to tears. But yeah, for this class, it has a much more common sense definition, right? A short piece of nonfiction writing on a particular subject. And yes, it is a short piece of writing. I know students sometimes think that 3 pages is long, but it's actually not very long at all. And because this assignment is teaching pretty basic stuff in terms of a 3-point thesis, and then using those 3 points to become your topics for your 3 body paragraphs, okay? And those 3 body paragraphs are bookended by an introduction and a conclusion. Believe me, to write those 5 paragraphs, you will easily fill up 2.5 to 3 pages. The essay draft assignment is until next week, but I think the instructions don't even list it as a page count requirement. It's word counts. The essay should be between 700 and 1,400 words. 700 is a bit on the short side. I think my Jeep essay is in the neighborhood of 900 words, and I think it's exactly about 3 pages. 800 to 900 words is what you're aiming for. That's not terribly long. Okay, that is a short piece of writing. So don't get scared. By the way, I never have people write 1,400 words. 1,400 words is approximately, maybe there's the occasional student. It's about 5 pages. It rarely happens. Okay, this we've already covered. Basic essay structure. So we're talking about an introduction, supports. I would change that language a little bit, but I didn't create this presentation. But yeah, those 3 middle paragraphs. That's where your analysis occurs. That's where you make your points. And then a conclusion. Here's a better breakdown, because again, we can see the 5-paragraph structure. I'm going to breeze through this because I've already talked about this, but you have an introduction. The introduction should end with your thesis statements. It is possible for the thesis to appear elsewhere, but in this class, I'm going to urge you to put it at the end. Okay, I'm going to teach these writing basics, and then after this class, if you want to pull back from what you see as a dogmatic obsession with structure and perfect 3-point thesis statements, you can do so. But it's the big picture stuff that's more important. That good writing does have a general introduction. Good writing does end with either a thesis or a thesis-like statement, like a main idea, a strong sentence that sets up what's to come. Good writing has one idea per paragraph. Okay, so you have 3 discussion points in mind, and you devote 1 paragraph to each. Good writing then ends with a conclusion. Okay, but the introduction is a general paragraph. Then you have the body. We've already talked about this. Okay, so those 3 middle paragraphs. This is where you develop your ideas. Yeah, analysis doesn't occur here. Okay, I sometimes see that too, where right in the introduction, the person wants to start explaining why the Call of Duty ad uses the Rolling Stones' "Gimme Shelter." No, that belongs here. Okay, and if you're ever confused, again, you have the Jeep example to study. And then a conclusion where you echo your thesis and here it says set your readers down gently. I also like to say find the right final note. Okay, find the right tone, those right final sentences to close your essay. Thesis statements, we spent a lot of time talking about in week 1, so I'm going to fly by this. We defined thesis statements. I gave 2 examples, right? Actually, there were 2 separate slides devoted to 2 separate thesis statements. This I'm going to cruise through too, because we've talked about this. Okay, so your body paragraph should start with a topic sentence. The topic sentence is like the thesis of that paragraph. And then, yes, in your body paragraphs, this is where you explain things. Okay, this is where you get to explore your ideas in full. So if your 3 topics with the Call of Duty ad are music, it's purposely diverse cast, and then something else, this is where you'll get into those details, not in the introduction or conclusion. This is where you'll show your research and evidence by mentioning specifics from the ad, a well-placed quotation that you discovered, and then ending with a link. I sometimes call this a cincher line. Like, I apologize. Let me jump to the Jeep essay real quickly. There, let me get rid of this. Okay. Here it is. So a cincher line or a link line just means like, okay, so here's an entire paragraph about the Jeep's use of imagery. I describe it because, again, the average reader either has never seen the ad or needs a refresher. So I explain, I discuss, I have a quotation that I found, but here's my cincher line, okay, where I tie everything together. Only such a versatile automobile as Jeep, the ad seems to suggest, could take one on a journey into the heart of the African plain or to the rocky tip of Tierra del Fuego to see giraffes and penguins up close. Okay, this too is kind of part of the cincher. The animal imagery is effective here because it connects strongly to Jeep's overall brand. So you end a paragraph with kind of final summary comments about the topic and the ad. You don't end on a thud. You don't end with a quotation, for example. Okay, that's what the cincher line is, or the link. Okay, yeah, blah, 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 boom. Okay, research. This is what I want to spend the rest of the lecture talking about. And I'll beg you to hang in there, okay? This is pretty important stuff. So, as I said, you need 3 sources. One source can be that video, Pathos, Logos, and Ethos in Advertising. Then you need 2 additional sources beyond that. One of those sources should come from the Full Sail Library database. And let me actually switch gears. This is quote sandwich. I'll get back to that. Okay, so do people know how to get to the Full Sail Library database? So I'm going to go to this Full Sail Connect. I should have it bookmarked. I don't know why I don't. I have to sign in. Bear with me. Okay, but once you're signed in to Connect, there we go. You can scroll down, and the library thingy is here. Click on that. Once you're in the library page, you scroll down again to Research Databases. Now, you have a whole mess of databases. EBSCOhost is a popular one to begin with. EBSCOhost is actually not a single database. It's a collection of databases like Academic Search Complete, Art and Architecture, Business Source Complete. So EBSCOhost is a popular umbrella thing to search. Also, and you can see Eric. Some of you maybe recognize Eric. That's part of EBSCOhost as well. There's also what was formerly known as LexisNexis. It's now called Nexus Uni. Nexus Uni tends to search more kind of mainstream everyday things like newspapers, magazines, more popular magazines, whereas EBSCOhost, it will search some of that too, but it tends to also search for more academic sources like journals. So let's begin with EBSCOhost, okay? So you go into EBSCOhost, you have this ability to select all the individual databases, which I recommend just to make things easy. Click continue. Okay, so here's an important caveat. I already know what to type in as keywords to trigger a specific response I'm looking for. It is not going to be that easy on your end, okay? Remember these 6 sources that I showed on my references page for the essay that I wrote? It took me hours to find those 6 sources, probably 3 or 4 hours, because it meant Googling. It meant, finding websites or articles, but needing to read through them because some didn't work out. Some didn't have the useful information I was looking for. So please understand that it's not going to be as simple as I make it look here. For example, Call of Duty, Gimme Shelter. Okay, that's the name of the song that's used in the Call of Duty ad, because I already know it's going to trigger this article. Now, I can give some general tips, which is vary your search terms. I don't recommend putting in things like McDonald's. I'm trying to think of the various things that are going on in that ad. Editing, like camera work, McDonald's camera work, because you'll either get a gazillion results that don't speak about your ad at all. It's not usually a good technique to put in the name of your ad and your specific thesis points. Sometimes it will, but usually not. Vary your search terms. There's also something I like to call reverse engineering. And by that I mean, like when I wrote the Jeep essay, I already knew what I wanted to say. I already knew what 3 points I wanted to discuss, and I already had pretty firm ideas about what I wanted to say in my analysis. Now, that's not going to apply to everybody, of course. But if you are in that kind of situation where you sort of know, at least even sort of know what you're going to say, then you can automatically search for the sorts of things that are going to reinforce what you say. I didn't word that very well, so let me explain. Okay, so the Jeep, the first thesis point is the ad's use of color. We talked about that in week 1. So I already knew I wanted to talk about beige and the fabric quality of the background. Specifically, I knew that coloring was an earth tone, right? Because we talked about that in week 1. I needed to find an article that said something about beige or browns or earth tones that was served as a strong statement about its connection to nature, because the Jeep ad is obviously playing with those ideas. So that's what I mean by reverse engineering. Already kind of knowing what you want in terms of a quotation and trying to trigger things that come up with those results. Obviously, that's probably going to be a bit more successful in Google than this database. Vary search terms, think about the reverse engineering thing, and understand that it's going to take not minutes, it might take hours for you to find your 2 or 3 relevant sources. Okay, so here's a source called Gimme Sales, a play on words of the song, by Ann Donahue in Billboard magazine. Well, that looks good. Billboard's a pretty well-known music magazine. We have an HTML version of the file, and at first glance, it's very short. That's usually not a good sign, and I've already read this article. So at first blush, it doesn't really seem to be saying anything about why that song was used in the ad. Okay, it doesn't really, it doesn't get into helping you better understand why this song, right? Because as I said in week 1, these details in an ad are never accidental. So why Gimme Shelter? There are lots of upbeat songs. There are lots of well-known classic rock songs. Why did they want Gimme Shelter? This article doesn't explain it, but there is some kind of tangentially interesting information here, because it says, according to Activision Vice President of Music Affairs Tim Riley, scoring, in other words, obtaining, Gimme Shelter for the ad was no small feat. And it goes on about how this guy had to fly out to New York to speak with the rights holders of the song, that Activision even allowed the Rolling Stones themselves to see an early edit of the ad to get their approval as well. Okay, that's not explaining why Gimme Shelter is an appropriate choice of song for that ad, but it certainly is evidence that they wanted this song, right? That they went to great lengths to obtain this song. So here, best case scenarios, maybe cite something from here, but also maybe find some other piece of evidence. But yeah, maybe this is tangentially important. And by the way, I'm going to revisit this article next week. Next week is going to be entirely devoted to APA. Yeah, I know. I can't promise it's going to be the sexiest or most exciting lecture, but it might be one of the most useful. Because if you're panicking about APA, if APA just seems like a jumble of random rules that make no sense, or maybe you've never even heard of APA, next week I'm going to devote the entire session to walkthroughs. I will open up a blank Microsoft Word document and I will show how to make your paper look right, so layout, and then I'm going to show in real time how to create in-text citations and references. Okay, since I mentioned APA, let's end on APA. If we go back to I'm pretty much done with this thing here. The rest of it, quote sandwich, that's more important for next week. I'll revisit this concept next week, how to make sure that your quotations are incorporated properly into a paragraph. And we're going to get into all this stuff now, APA, and I'll just do this naturally my own way. Okay, so you have to complete this outline. And here's the completed example. You can see it has a full references page. So yes, you're going to have to create a references page in APA format. The 3 body paragraph sections ask for a quotation with an APA citation. So you're going to have to do the same thing. Okay, you can't just drop in a quotation into the outline template and then make up a citation. It needs to be in APA format. But here's the bargain I'm willing to make with you. Because I'm not going to get into APA in detail until next week, here's what I want for the outline. I want you to make your best, pardon the pun, college try with APA, okay? In other words, I don't want to see completely invented citations or completely invented references. Some people just drop in URLs, web addresses, and call them references. No, that's not a reference. And here's the thing. You have this completed example. So let's say you don't know how to create a reference. You can just open the Jeep example and do the same thing. Author's last name, first initial, a date in parentheses, the name of the article, okay, the name of the publication, italicized, and then retrieve from, and then, yes, a URL or web address. Citations are a bit more complicated because they're always this. I'll get into this next week. There are multiple ways to handle it, or there are 2 different ways to handle it. One is you can just find your own natural way to lead into the quotation, like I do here. The ad encourages viewer interaction, comma, for quote, when rotated, then the rest of the quotation. And once the quotation ends, author's last name, year, page or paragraph number. By the way, the abbreviation for page is just P. The abbreviation for paragraph is para with a period. Now, why page or paragraph number? Because if we think back to the article I just found in Billboard, that's a 1-page article. So there are no page numbers. So you count the paragraphs to find which paragraph the quotation is. Some of your sources will have traditional page numbers, especially when you find a PDF file, for example, through the Full Sail Library. The PDF will be an exact duplicate of how the pages actually looked in the magazine. So yeah, author's last name, year, page or paragraph number. Or, do I have an example? No, this uses the same structure. Okay. Do I have an example of how it works the other way? The other thing I'm going to recommend is I'm going to type into the chat. It's called Project APA, APA.info. My machine is slowing up. Okay. I recommend going to that site right now and bookmarking it. This site was created by a fellow Full Sail English Department member. And the great thing about this site is it covers the basics. Okay, it doesn't get too much into the weeds. And for example, in text citations, just go to the very first guy right here. Okay, so don't worry about this stuff yet. That's more important later. And it covers the two ways to do a quotation. Basically, you always have two options. And again, I'm not going to get too much into the weeds because this is going to be what I do next week. But you could mention the author's name in your actual sentence, like according to Newman, or according to John Newman, or according to Ann Billboard of Billboard Magazine. Okay, but you are mentioning the author's name in your sentence. The rule is if you mention the name in your sentence, a year immediately has to appear in parentheses. And then once the quotation finishes, you put the page or paragraph number. The other option is to find your own natural way to lead into the quotation, which they don't really show here. They just drop in the quotation. And then at the end, you put everything. Last name, year, page or paragraph number. This is part of what makes APA confusing. It's kind of like choose your own adventure. You have to decide, am I going to use the author's name in my sentence or not? And then that defines whether you split things up, author, year, page, paragraph number at the end, or everything at the end. Again, the bargain I'm willing to make with you is give APA a solid try. Go to projectapa.info and imitate these examples, okay, with the quotations you find. Or go to the Jeep essay and, study the examples. Same thing for the references page. Go to the references page and do the same thing with your sources. If there is no author, that hopefully shouldn't be happening, but okay, let's say there's no author. There's no author, but the title of the article then gets moved to the beginning, like that. Article name, date, name of publication. Okay, I'll go back to how it was. What if there's no date? Then use the abbreviation ND, N period, D period, lowercase, which stands for no date. Same thing in citations. Okay, so let me go to this one here. If there's no date, use that same abbreviation. But there is a date, so let me go back. If there is no author for an in-text citation, use the first 2 to 3 words of the article title. So this was written by a guy named Radich. It's called With Jeep. It's basically the name of the ad. With Jeep, see whatever you want to see. So use the first 2 to 3 words. It would be weird to say with Jeep see, so we'll just use the first 2 words. Okay, and you put them in quotation mark. Or let's imagine you had an article called The Road Ahead, The Road Behind, and there's no author. The road ahead. Punctuation almost always, 99% of the time, goes inside the quotation marks. Okay, so there are ways to handle those unique situations where you don't have an author's name, you don't have a date. But does everyone here feel confident that at least for the outline assignment, that you can give APA a decent try? For example, I will not make a big deal about the more esoteric things. Like, for example, you might have noticed, why is this lowercase? It's because titles, only on the references page, and only for the title of the article, not the title of the publication, only for the title of the article. You capitalize just as you would a regular sentence. But we'll get into that next week. Okay. Nicholas says, yep, good. Hopefully other people also nodding their heads, because that's the bargain I'm willing to make. If I see that your outline is, I can see that you're following APA, and I can see that you've made a pretty awesome attempt. I will ignore the nitpicky mistakes, okay? Because, I only have an hour to work with tonight. And because next week is entirely devoted to APA, that's about what you need, an hour to cover APA thoroughly. I can't do that tonight. And I don't think it's fair to grade you too harshly on APA in the outline. But I will get frustrated if I see that no attention has been given to APA. Again, you have the Jeep example. You have the Jeep outline in the instructions for the activity. You also have projectapa.info. Okay, so you can go see how to handle citations. You can go see references. So I do think that between those two options, you should be able to come pretty close to getting things correct. Okay. But for week 3, when the next lecture is entirely devoted for APA and you write your draft of the essay, that's when I'm going to expect near perfection for APA. But for this stage, Yeah, I just want to see that you are giving your best shot and that you are clearly following APA and trying your best. Okay, that's really what I wanted to cover. I've kept it to just about an hour. So this is where I'll open things up to questions, comments, not just about the outline. If you have any questions about the class as a whole or anything we discussed in week one or the grading of assignments, feel free to ask away. Okay, that's what I'm here for. I'm going to take a sip of my cold coffee that's been sitting here the whole time. Yeah, the most important thing is I hope people come away with a clear sense of what the outline is, how to fill out that outline template properly. Again, it's not a brainstorming worksheet. The outline template is not filled with individual prompts that are supposed to be answered in isolation. It's just a more detailed breakdown of those 5 basic paragraphs that I explained at the very beginning. And the other bigger thing is, research. Getting a head start on research, finding some useful quotations from quality sources. I should mention that too, quality sources. So, not Wikipedia. By the way, Wikipedia is fine if, give me shelter. Should be a weak Wikipedia entry for the song. So no, you don't quote Wikipedia itself. Why? Because we don't know the quality. Yes, sometimes there are Wikipedia entries that are really well written. Sometimes there are Wikipedia entries about things that I feel fairly knowledgeable about, like a particular novel, and I can kind of tell that the person who worked on it is also highly knowledgeable. But there are some other Wikipedia entries that are just, they're awful. Like the writing is awful. I see so many grammar errors. So no, we don't trust Wikipedia. So, and plus, Wikipedia is little more than an encyclopedia with very basic information. However, if you go to Wikipedia and scroll down to the references, here we have 73 references, and you decide to check out Jan Wenner. He's the main publisher of Rolling Stone. This article, Jagger Remembers, or here, Mick Jagger on the apocalyptic Gimme Shelter, or other ones. Okay. Yeah, Rolling Stone is quality. What about this one? Doesn't list the publication. Let's see what this is. NPR. Yeah, fine. NPR, CNN, Rolling Stone, various newspapers, websites that really do have articles that are trustworthy. But yeah, no Wikipedia, no online dictionaries, no IMDb, no biography.com, these encyclopedia-like or dictionary-like or literally dictionary sources. In other words, kind of common sense, okay? You're supposed to be finding things that help you, that provide evidence or support for what you're saying. As usual, if you don't have questions, if you're comfortable with what we've gone over, you're free to go enjoy the rest of your evening. I thank you so much for attending. I'll see you next week. Same place, same time, same bat channel, same bat time. Or is it bat time, bat channel? I can't remember which one comes first. It's going to be all about APA. Like I said, maybe not the sexiest lecture, but it will be useful. Okay. People who watch the week 3 lecture and even follow along, they have very few issues with APA. And because APA does mystify a lot of people, that's also why I devote the entire week 3 lecture to APA. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording because it doesn't seem like people have questions. I'm going to hope that that's just an indication that this session was incredibly lucid and incredibly crystal clear. But I'm going to stop the recording now. Adios, everyone.